welcome to my channel, and I will be talking about the 30 books that I would like to read before I turn 30. I just turned 29 as I'm recording this about almost 3 weeks ago, so I thought it would be only fitting to try to create one of these lists and see what I actually can get around to. So let's get started. I won't go into too much detail about these books just so I can kind of keep this video short, and I am terrible at today about wording things. I had just tried to record a bit of it earlier, and I'm just feeling like I'm not being very eloquent, so we just press ahead. I'm going to start from 30 and go up. So the first being a book that it was picked for me to read by my friend Katie. It was almost a year or two ago now when her coven had won the first team-based Witchathon. She picked The Unbecoming of Myra Dyer by Michelle Hodkins for me to read. This is a YA novel that is about a girl named Myra Dyer, as she believes life couldn't get any stranger when, other than waking up in the hospital with no memory how she got there, and it kind of, she goes on to pretty much a quest to figure out what happened to her and why she's in the hospital. 29 is A Diary of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This is a reimagining of Dracula's Brides. So I've heard a lot of good things about this, and I have a beautiful copy of it that is, I think, an Illumicrate version. I could be wrong, I have to look at it, that I was gifted from Tiara from Aubrey's Books and Coffee when she was doing a giveaway, and that was one of the books that I happened to get, and I really loved the beautiful cover, and I'm excited to get to it. I want to read more Katie Roberts in the futures because I love just her stories, period. So I would like to read Desperate Measures and read that whole series, really. This is a spicy retelling of Aladdin from Jasmine and Jafar's point of view, and it's got a dom and sub type of dynamic to it. So I would like to see what all the hubbub is about with this series. 27, Stardust by Neil Gaiman. I love this movie so much. I've heard mixed things about the book itself. Neil Gaiman, I've read his Norse mythology things in the past, and I enjoyed the writing of that. So I'm hoping that I can really enjoy the book since I love the movie so much. So fingers crossed I enjoy it as much as I think I will. Then 26, My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. I've been wanting to read a book by Stephen Graham Jones for the longest time, and I thought that this would be a good jump into his work. This is a horror that is a half Indian outcast with an abusive father and an absent mother, and an entire town that wants nothing to do with her. She lives in her own world, a world which protection comes from an unusual source, horror movies. So it kind of looks like there's a serial killer that goes around, and she kind of like compares the serial killer to horror movie killers, if that's what it seems like to me, without reading the entire synopsis from Goodreads. I try not to read too many synopsises because I don't want to spoil myself, because I know a whole lot of them tend to be spoiler filled. So then I would like to read Neon Gods by Katie Roberts. I read a short story that was Medusa and Calypso. It's like a novella of hers, but I would like to read that. That's like that novella is set in this type of world, but I would like to read the actual series, and Neon Gods is set between Zeus and Persephone. 24 is Harlem Shuffle by Colson Whitehead. I read The Nickel Boys and The Underground Railroad by him and gave The Nickel Boys 5 stars. It was amazing. And Harlem Shuffle is a story that plays out in a beautifully recreated New York City of the early 1960s, and it's about a family saga masquerading as a crime novel. about a social novel about race and power, and ultimately it's a love letter to Harlem, based just on that little blurb that I got from Goodreads. But I believe I have an ARC copy of this and have been, for some reason, putting it off for the longest time, but I would really like to get to it. Then I would like to read Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. This is about, looks like a main character is imprisoned by vampires that he's been tasked with trying to defend the realm and church from, and he is now being forced to tell his story about his time with the Brotherhood. So 22, Tell Me by Junji Ito. I've read a couple of Junji Ito's works in the past, but would actually love to read more of his. He's known for doing the horror manga, and of the two that I had read, his retelling of Frankenstein and his Cat Diaries, I really enjoyed it, but I would like to read more. 21, Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered. The Definition How-To Guide by Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark. This is from the Women of the My Favorite Murder podcast. I've been listening to that podcast for years now. I've had an ebook copy of this book for the longest time. I just have yet to get to it, but I would love to read their story because I just love their dynamic, period. 20, The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. This was her debut novel that's looks like it's like a dystopian novel that's set in 2059. So I don't really know much about it, but it seems like it's gets a lot of hype, especially from Ashley with Frolic Through Fiction. So I've been meaning to pick up a Samantha Shannon book for the longest time. I just have yet to have time to do that. 19, Mythos, the Greek Myth Retold by Stephen Fry. This is his modern collection of Greek myths, of him retelling these stories in a more, make it into more emotionally resonant and really funny without losing their original wonder. And I love Stephen Fry as a narrator when it comes to audiobooks, so when I saw that he wrote his own, like he has a series now of like different myths retellings, I was happy to see that, and I can't wait to dive in. 18, The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Honestly, any Brandon Sanderson could fit into this slot because I'm not entirely too sure where to start with his universe. So if you have any recommendations about where to start with Brandon Sanderson, let me know in the comments below. But The Way of Kings is one that I would like to get into, like more epic fantasy types of series. So I definitely would like to read something from him. Another one I would like to dive into because of another booktuber, Becca in the Books, is a big advocate for this series, which is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. It's another dystopian type of novel that has a color-coded society. We have Jade City by Fonda Lee. This is a Asian mafia, like magical realism type of series that is based off of the powers that Jade is known for, if I'm remembering correctly from the different synopses that I've heard of it. I heard how drama-filled the series is, and I'm intrigued for sure. 15, It by Stephen King. I am in the process of slowly working my way through Stephen King's books, and it is one of his well-known chunkers about Pennywise the clown. And I have been doing a thing where I read a Stephen King and watch the adaptation. I've done that with The Shining last year, I think, and I'm currently doing that with Carrie. I'm almost done with Carrie, and I would like to watch the adaptations, and it'll be the same thing if I get to it. 14 is one that a couple of my friends have been major advocates for, which is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This follows a young woman as she makes a bargain to live forever and ends up being cursed to be forgotten by everyone she has met. So I've seen multiple beautiful covers for this book and have been itching to pick it up. Another nonfiction one that's kind of deals with hard topics is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This is like her memoir of struggling to articulate her experiences in an abusive same-sex relationship, and it just kind of goes into the subject where she just kind of relives those scenarios in a way to try to kind of heal from it. 12 Bunny by Mona Awad. This is one that I have been meaning to get on some TBRs for the longest time. It follows a girl named Samantha who just started a highly selected MFA program at Warren University, and she happens to stumble across a clique of unbearably twee rich girls who call each other Bunny and seem to move and speak as one. So it kind of follows things as they progress, and she kind of slowly works her way into this clique and falls under their spell. Another book about dark themes is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. This explores the psychological dynamics of a relationship between a teenage girl and her high school teacher, and the all-consuming feelings and emotions that happen after it and the aftermath. 10 Gideon the Ninth by Tansman Muir. This is a book about a necromancer, and it's, from what I heard, it's like an epic fantasy, almost sci-fi-esque, that has been kind of sweeping booktube and book Twitter for the longest time, that I just need to bite the bullet and start. 9 This Is How You Lose a Time War by Emil L. Moharder and Max Gladstone. This is a sci-fi time-traveling spies time-traveling type of thing that two spies end up falling for each other. I believe they communicate by letters, and somehow they manage to end up falling in love, and this is, I believe, a sapphic romance as well. So and it's not a very long book, so I'm interested in seeing what my thoughts would be for this. 8, we have another Samantha Shannon with The Priory of the Orange Tree. This is a big chunker of a book. Don't really know much about it other than being kind of an epic fantasy that possibly has dragons in it. Anything with dragons in it, I'm kind of all for. 7, we have Madeline Miller with The Song of Achilles. I loved Circe when I read that, and I've been meaning to read this retelling of Achilles and Patroclus, but their relationship as it grows into something more. 6, The Starless Sea by Aaron Morgenstern. This follows a graduate student as he discovers a mysterious book hidden in some stacks of books. Hidden in other stacks of books. Okay, for some reason that sentence kind of confused me, but I read Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstern and have heard mixed things about The Starless Sea, so I'm interested in seeing what the fuss is about with this. 5, The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. This is following the death of a young girl from her point of view, as she just kind of watches life on Earth kind of continue without her, and how everyone is processing her death after the fact, and it somehow managed to build a tale filled with hope, humor, suspense, and even joy. 4, The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I've only read, I think, maybe about one Holly Black. This is her fantasy novel, YA novel about fairies, where girl Jude and her 2 sisters were stolen away to the a high court of fairy, and 10 years later she is wanting to kind of be more a part of that world, but they are not really, the Fae are not big fans of humans, especially the prince that she grew up around. So the series kind of follows Jude as she becomes more kind of embroiled in the politics of that world. 3, we have Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This is the video game inspired dystopian that's set in the year 2044, that the main character Wade, he stumbles upon a clue in the game Oasis that has to do with the will that the creator had left, stating that whoever completes the game wins the right to be the owner of the Oasis. And it has a lot of pop culture references in it. 2 is Gone Girl. This is a mystery crime thriller about a wife who vanishes and they suspect her husband to be behind the reason why she disappeared. And you just kind of follow the story to see what exactly happened to her. And the first one, but not the least one, is Legends by Marie Lu. This is a series that I've been meaning to read for the longest time. This is also a dystopian that is set in the western part of the United States that is now home to the Republic, that is usually at war with any of its neighbors, and it follows a girl who is born into an elite family who is trying to get revenge for her brother's death. So I find it very interesting, and I am trying to find ways to add these books to my TBR for the next year. Let me know in the comments down below what you think I should start with, what you think I would enjoy the most out of this series, this list of books, and subscribe to keep up to date with anything you like of my content. I will try to keep it up in the future, and then until next time, bye.